Kane, it's 1-0. We're fucking down. 13th in the championship. The takeover happened as I said it would. People will be. Oh, when have we got Leeds? Now then, people, good afternoon and welcome back to the Just Joe Football Show. I hope you're enjoying your Sunday and having a fantastic day. Listen, we're still going to be talking about Red Bull. The fallout is still ongoing. I don't know if anyone caught this, but the Trust spoke to the club yesterday, just ironing out some finer details. So I just wanted to go through them and also just have a little conversation and chat about why certain questions weren't answered and what that means, you know. There's a lot of people taking the deal on face value, which I understand that's your prerogative, but you have to be a little bit dubious. You have to question these things as a football fan for the sake of your football club and remain on the button for me. Yes, it's exciting. Yes, now, you know, we don't have to worry about financial issues. Does it mean we can keep Gray? Does it mean we can keep Rutter? These are the positive things, but obviously what is the plan long term? And the Trust compiled a lot of questions and put them to the club and they were answered. However, some were not answered. What the reasons why they didn't answer them, this is what we're going to go in and have a chat about, okay? Now, the Trust, as we know, there was a mixed response from the fan base, yeah? Even though financial investment came, it's because it's come from Red Bull. Okay, we know their history. Their history isn't amazing when it comes to football clubs. In terms of when they take over and what they actually do and what they become, yes. But it's the foundations of the football club are almost scrapped and forgotten about, you know. Salzburg, for example, they tried to put since, you know, when they took over in the 2000s or 19s, whenever it was. But, you know, Austrian FA were having none of that and said, nah, yeah, you've taken over the club, but this isn't a starting point. You know, this club has historical connotations and stuff. So that's the issues that we have for them. Now, of course, financial backing coincides with on-field success. You know, Parag has said, and it's music to my ears, that any sort of investments will be going straight onto the playing field, will be going straight onto playing personnel, and as a football fan, all you want to do is see your football team win games, but it's at what cost, right? It's at what cost? What, you know, what's the trade-off? You know, is it as simple as accepting a bit of red from the Red Bull logo, which don't faze me, if I'm being totally honest. It is what it is, and we'll get into that because he answered that question and answered it with more clarity than he did when he spoke to Phil. But yeah, look, the investment helps with on-field success. Now, of course, a lot of people expressed their concerns strongly. Different creators did. People on Twitter, people on Wacko, Facebook, whatever you want. Everyone's got an opinion on this, either positive or negative, and some people are in between. But we have to think as a fan base, what is Red Bull's future intentions? What could they be moving forward, given their history with previous sports clubs? Not just at football, across all avenues, yeah? We have to think about these things. And of course, listen, if you want to take everything that's said as gospel, that's your prerogative. If you don't believe they have a say in the football club at all, that's your prerogative. You know, they haven't got... It's just some of the wording for me, when you actually go through it and think about what's being said, you know, even with the minority investor stuff, or they don't have a place on the board, but then when Parag was asked by Phil, what does that mean? Oh, they've got the same as anyone else who's a minority investor. You know, we work as a team, we work in tandem, so that made me think, well, they do have a say then. And I'll keep coming back to this point. When you get a minority investor, the fact that they even had to have a conversation about changing logo, badge, Ellen Road, it doesn't sit right with me. Because if I'm a minority investor, do you think Parag's coming to me and saying, Joe, just so you know, it's not going to be called Just Joe Leeds, and you're not going to put your logo as that? He won't even have to have them conversations. So there's more to this deal. There is more to this deal. And the Trust say, look, we would be naive as fans to assume there isn't a larger long-term plan for Red Bull's initial foot in the door at Leeds United. And if, you know, you're taking everything that's been said as gospel, and I don't mean to be rude, I think it is naive. I think it is naive because in the past, whenever they've got involved, they have made significant changes to names, badges, kits, Their brand is front and centre, yeah? And in some cases have a raised history of the clubs they have purchased. Like, look at Red Bull Salzburg, for example, Red Bull Leipzig, all these clubs, you know, they own clubs in Brazil and stuff. I think they still wear the old colours of the old club, as Andrea was saying the other day. But look, while the club have been open and proactive in stating that no one from Red Bull will sit on the board and there'll be no change to name or logo, this is, and the trust make this point, this is only a promise. While the 49ers are in charge and in complete control of the club, what happens if they have an exit strategy? And of course, he's telling us, well, when we inquired to take some of the shares off Rads, we had implemented into the deal, in the future, we could take full control. We don't have that with Red Bull. But that still doesn't mean it can't happen. That just meant when you took over, you had a strategy, a plan in place to say, right, bam, 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 then we'll acquire it. Just because there's not one tied into this deal doesn't mean that can't be renegotiated, doesn't mean they can't increase shares. This is when I'm talking about being naive about this scenario. And of course, there were questions that were put to the club, which we'll go through with. I'll share the Trust article. Big up to the Trust for doing this, because obviously they have the best interest of the club at heart. And there were some questions that were put to the club that they were unable to receive specific answers for. Why? And that's what I want to have a chat about. And some of the questions that they did, you know, chose not to answer or couldn't give us answers for are the ones that lead me to believe, you know, it's dubious. It's like, what's the future and all this sort of stuff, you know? But what we'll do, we'll take a look at the Trust article. We'll go through it, and, you know, you can give me your responses in the live chat and see what you think about what's been said. So this is the Trust article. As I say, I will put it in the description to the video if you want to have a look yourself. But this is what was asked, okay? So first question, Leeds fans are very passionate and demanding fan base. It's important that our fans know that all new investors and stakeholders have a clear understanding of our history and heritage, especially concerning badges, colours, remaining grounds with corporate sponsors ahead of legacy players and managers. So, for example, the Don Revy stand, you're going to change that to Red Bull, you know? How is that being communicated to our investors, especially those not based in the UK? Parag says, if it even was Parag, it's the club, right? It's the club. Absolutely. This decision was not made lightly and was the result of many conversations over several months with the Red Bull team to ensure they shared the 49ers' respect for the club's history and spirit, and that they were committed to the vision for Leeds going forward. And again, I'll come back to it, and I know people might not want to hear it, but why do you need to have these conversations if there isn't a worry, a concern that they will one day have control of the football club or indeed have a bigger say? Am I being silly asking these questions? Like, please let me know, because I'm thinking, like, do they need to have these conversations with other minority? Did they need to have it with, say, Rudy Klein-Thomas's company, for example? Did they need to have it with Will Ferrell, other minority investors? That's the thing that leads me to think, okay, this is bigger than what we're being fed, if you like, what we're being fed. Now in its infancy, okay, 5-10 years' time, but we still have, because I'll still be a fan in 5-10 years' time. You know what I mean? As will you. So we have to think about these things. Next question was, it's been said that Leeds United badge will remain unchanged. How will the shirt look? Will it have the red logo on the shirts, and will the club colours remain the same and unchanged? And again, if you remember the other day, I mentioned how they mentioned, oh, well, Leeds had red before. It's going to have a red logo, I believe. I think this is the trade-off the club have said, look, you know, we'll let you have the logo. You know, it's probably a significant investment where Red Bull have said, we want our logo with the Red Bulls and the yellow sun. Because the answer tells me this, and it told me that in Phil's article. He says, correct, the logo will remain unchanged. In terms of their branding, Red Bull may choose to use their original logo. So they're making the decision with this. Our shirts have previously featured red logos, Red Kite, Bed 24, Packard Bell, and we understand supporters may have concerns about this, but we hope the benefit this partnership brings to on-pitch performance will ultimately outweigh that unease. So in other words, yeah, you're going to have red on the logo. You would assume, maybe they can do a deal and get them to do it blue and yellow, but you would assume it's going to be that. But don't mind, because and I can accept that trade-off as a fan. I know some won't. Some people will be watching this seething. I've told you many times, I know people that don't own anything red, wouldn't buy the 32 red shirt because it had the word in red, even though it was in blue. Big up Patches and Ken, you know. So I get their frustration. I do. But for me, I'm like, listen, I've owned a red pair of Nike Max. I got absolutely battered for it on Instagram when I put them on. But it ain't that deep for me. But that's just me. That's just me. So, like, if it has the Red Bulls on, it ain't going to faze me too much. And I can accept that trade-off. If you're going to keep Archie Gray and bring in players that sees us get promoted next season, I can accept that trade-off. But that's just me. I understand as well those that may not. But the answer to Phil and the answer to the trust here sort of tells me that we're getting that red logo. And if we don't, amazing. If they're willing to, you know, come down on that and say, okay, we'll make it blue and yellow. But I just think if you're getting a significant investment, it's your first foray into English football, you're getting eyes everywhere, they're probably going to want their proper logo, I think. But it remains to be seen. And again, it ain't that deep for me. Is Red Bull's stake investment linked to the stadium and ground in any way? They said this deal isn't about Ellen Road. Both 49ers Enterprise and Red Bull are both deeply respectful of the hallowed grounds of Ellen Road. The 49ers have committed in the past that there are upgrades planned to enhance the fan experience. In terms of any sale of the ground, a reminder, there is an asset of community value in place that would trigger during any sale conversation. So, yeah, that you would imagine that's not going to change. I don't know the ins and outs of what an asset of community value is, but I'm assuming we would have to be notified. But then also, let's not forget, in the summer, Radrizzani was willing to put this up for loan, and we didn't find out until he'd actually done it. So I'm not sure how foolproof an asset of community value is. Maybe someone can let me know in the chat, but yeah. Right, so I've got a bit of time, so I thought I'd have a quick look, right? So an asset of community value is a building or piece of land that is deemed to improve the social well-being or interests of the local community. Examples can include village shops, pub, libraries, community centres, children's centres, theatres, allotments, football grounds. In England's ACVs, which is asset of community values, are recognised as buildings or places that further the social well-being or social interests of their local community, both now and in the future. If an ACV is put up for sale, the local community has a right to try and buy it. So, yeah, it does go on to say, once an asset is listed as an ACV with the local authority, the local community will be informed if it is listed for sale within the 5-year listing period. The community can then reenact the community right to bid, which gives them a moratorium period of 6 months to determine if they can raise the finance to purchase the asset. Well, we ain't going to be able to purchase at Ellen Road, that's for sure. So I'm not too sure how foolproof this is. Again, people will be telling me in the chat I'm not a surveyor or a land guy just trying to do a bit of research, but it does say though, just 1 second while I have a look. Some situations exempt land or buildings from inclusion on the ACV list or operation of the moratorium or their homes and that, so that doesn't qualify. But in summary, ACVs plays a crucial role in empowering local communities to protect and preserve assets that contribute to their social well-being and interests. So I guess it's just we would know. We would be told if anything was going to change well in time. It's the fact the club have put that forward as well as like saying, look, don't forget that this. But again, that would trigger. Yes, we'd be notified. Yes, we could club together in Beeston Community Hall and try buy it. But I just don't know if that's as strong as we would like it to be. I don't know. Again, I'm just having a look. But the only reason I'm like cautious over that as well is the fact that Radrizzani put it up as capital, as a loan to buy Sampdoria. Nothing happened then. Unless it had run out, maybe, and I don't know. But what I'll say is don't let it run out then. Don't let it run out, because I swear there was something about it being run out in the past, maybe. But let's go back to it again. I'm not a fucking surveyor. In terms of the ground, will the board be considering selling naming rights to the stadium or parts of the stadium? They do say same response as above in the deal isn't about Ellen Road. There will be some in-stadium activations, as is already the case for partners like Hisense. More details on these pieces will be announced soon. It wouldn't surprise me if there is sort of like some some stand stuff that goes down. We already see the Hisense logo on the side of one of the sides. It's not that deep, is it? That might change to Red Bull, which might be an eyesore because it will have red on it, and you can see it from far. Hisense, right, when you're driving past and stuff. But again, this is a trade-off. This is a trade-off that we as fans have to accept, and this is football now, right? This is 2024. Whether you agree or disagree with it, I don't think we can change much about that stuff. Let's go back to the article then. It says, can we have some commitment from the club that this stadium will not be renamed, or if there are any plans you will consult with fans before any decisions are made? And they said absolutely. So you could read that as it will not be renamed, or they might be saying absolutely in response to we'll consult with fans. But I just don't see it flying. But then again, listen, Newcastle United are a vociferous fan base, equal to Leeds United, and they had their name changed to the Sports Direct Arena. Yes, they still called it St James's Park, but it still went through. It still went through. And I know we will stand and we would criticise, we would do, take to the streets and that, but all I'm saying is sometimes it still fucking goes ahead. I would think, though, Parag, 49ers and all that stuff are a lot more, they seem a lot more in tune with the community than that Mike Ashley did, because he didn't give two shits, did he, if we're being totally honest. But I'm just giving an example. I'm just playing devil's advocate here, because, like I say, Newcastle are as big, as vociferous, as, well supported as we are. And, One Club City and all that jazz. And they still had theirs changed. So, yeah. But they've said absolutely no changes, or if there were to be, they would consult with us. Goes on to say, with a lucrative investment, what is the club's priority in terms of how this will be spent? Players or ground facilities and investment? They say we can't go into specific details on this, but the priority is still to put every pound onto the pitch. There are still more upgrades planned at Ellen Road to enhance the fan experience in the short term, which is needed. I know I've not been for a couple of seasons now. I think the last game I attended was West Brom in the COVID game, but it needs a lick of paint, doesn't it? It needs a spruce up. Let's not beat around the bush. I was amazed as a fan when Radrizzani bought in the fan zones. I remember the first fan zone when Tom Zanetti came on and they had containers, and I was like, this is mint. Do you know what I mean? That's how starved we were. That a couple of containers that sold beers and Tom Zanetti on it playing music was like, this is sick. Women on stilts and that. Yeah, I love this. We were starved. Going back to the article, it says, do Red Bull intend to increase their stake in the future? This is where it gets to the nitty-gritty, right? Red Bull is happy about being a minority investor and is committed to the vision and the leadership of 49ers. When 49ers Enterprises purchased a minority stake several years ago, there was an option for the 49ers to take over from Andrea included from the start. No option like this exists for Red Bull, and the 49ers remain fully committed to the club. That don't mean out, though, folks. That doesn't mean out. I still can't get away from the fact, whether you think it's positive or negative, whatever, I still can't get away from the fact that the Red Bulls are just staying as minority investors. What's the end goal, really? Come on, ask yourself the question. What is the end goal? They want a bigger slice of the pie. Maybe they want all the pie, eventually. Yeah, they're committed to the 49ers running the club and that now, yeah, but just because there was something in place with Radrizzani to take over doesn't mean that this means then never will be. Oh, but there's never a plan. I just think that's a bit of skullduggery, a bit of a pacifier, if you like. I don't know. Maybe I'm too sceptical. Yeah, maybe I'm too sceptical. Will there be a different sponsor for the children's shirt? Yes, they will, obviously. They never had betting one. They don't want Red Bull on there. That's fine. That's fair enough. Does this deal waiver or impact any transfer fees owed to Leipzig or Salzburg? No. If they don't want to take control of the club, why are Red Bull investing in considering their current model? Good question. This is the first time they are investing in an English football team, and that's because Red Bull is committed to a bright future for Leeds United. They're not just entering, though, just for shits and giggles, are they? Just because, we want a bright future for Leeds. They could have supported any other club, but they had an abiding interest in Leeds for years, as the supporters know. So I've said, they've had a hard-on for Leeds for a very long time, 2014, the initial stuff, but then we've also heard dribs and drabs since then. They want to be part of helping this club reach its full potential, and they share the 49ers vision for how to get there. Listen, what I will say, again, being devil's advocate in response to this, for those that are negative, maybe just being seen front and centre and linked with a historic club like Leeds United, especially if we get promoted, is enough for the Red Bull brand. Because English football is massive. It is the most watched league in the world, the most eyes on it, the best league, all this sort of stuff. The Championship now, some even consider it one of Europe's top 5 leagues. It's getting there. New deal in terms of sponsorship, getting all out in the States and that. 8 live games a weekend across all the EFL and stuff. Look what happened with Wrexham. The English football leagues are madness. And it's the envy of world football. So maybe Red Bull just having their branding on our shirts and being dotted around the ground for when we return back to the Premier League is enough for them. You can see why it could be, The Austrian league isn't comparable to English football. Now they're in English football. Maybe that's just enough for them. It remains to be seen, but maybe it is, and maybe everything that's been said is they just want to be a minority investor because they're happy for their branding to be dotted out everywhere because of English football and the eyes it has on it. Could well be the case, folks. Are there any clauses around priority purchases on future sales? No. Are there any intentions of getting involved in the wider community? Yes, absolutely. The community is at the heart of the club and will continue to be. Our partners play a big part in that, and Red Bull is excited to build a relationship with the Leeds community. More to come on that soon. Now, this is where we get to the bit where they not refused, but didn't have answers for the questions. Look, there were 3 questions that we put to the club that we were unable to receive specific answers on. These were, what is the size of Red Bull's stake in the club, including sponsorship? Why can't you give us that? If they're just I don't know. How much is qualified as a minority investor? When I think minority, I just think, I don't know, 5%? Small amounts? But how much can be qualified as a minority investor? Is less than the 49ers classed as a minority investor? We own 55, they own 40. Is that? Because that's a massive amount, isn't it? So why wouldn't they answer that question? Why wouldn't they give us the details behind that? It's just an interesting thing to consider. The definition of a minority investment is a minority interest is an investment structure where the investor's equity ownership is less than 50% post-investment. So they could be sat on 49 for all we know, but we're not actually given them details. Again, let me know in the comments. I'm just dubious to why they couldn't answer that. What money was put up. Next question, if the stake is a small percentage, does this allow for larger stake to be taken in the future? Again, why not answer that? If everything you're saying about them happy being, a minority investor, and, there isn't a deal tied into this like there was when 49ers bought, the shares off Andrea. If that isn't what the future looks like, then why not answer that? That's my point. Because you've been asked by the trust, does this allow for a larger stake to be taken in the future? And you've not been given an answer, but you're willing to say, don't worry because, we haven't tied anything in where it says they can take control like we did with Andrea. But then this tells me that option's still on the table because you've failed to answer that. That's how I read that. Maybe you don't. And it says, is the minority shareholding a sale of the 49ers stake or a creation of new shares? Again, no answer on that. Have the 49ers sold some of it? I don't know. Basically what they said, the club said they are unable to go into specifics on these questions, but that it is a significant minority investment. It's minority, don't worry. Right, okay, how much? It's minority. Yeah, but how much? Minority! Do you know what I mean? They're pushing that word in minority, but as I said, it's anything below 50%. It could be 45, it could be 40. That's a large chunk of the pie. It's a large chunk of the pie. And then they've not told us if they can take a larger stake in the future. This is the point. They've not told us that. It's all a bit of a madness in it. And it's a great deal for the club on the commercial side, i.e., the sponsorship, which I agree with. The resources they are committing could mean the difference between saving a player from being sold or signing a player. They reiterated that the 49ers enterprise will maintain complete control, and Red Bull is committed to the 49ers' continued leadership of the club. I said, like, the 49ers are in charge. Don't worry, it's a minority investment. How much? What's the share? You're like, what's the difference here? Are we talking 55-45? Are we talking 51-49? Do you know what I mean? 49 hurts. You don't know, do you? This is what I'm saying. They're just willing to go, it's minority. Just accept that it's minority. And of course, right, we haven't put anything in the deal that says they can take full control like we did with Rad, so don't worry about it. But I do worry, and I think you should too as well. Like, obviously, it's exciting. I'm not getting away from that fact. It's money. Could we keep Gray? Yeah, I'm happy with the trade-off on the shirt and stuff. But what does the future look like? What does it look like? And that's why you have to remain sceptical with anything. And I think some people are losing their minds like, oh, you want us to be in League One forever. It's not about that. I want us to be Leeds United. Yeah. But I think the trust, sign off with it perfectly. We thank the club for responding to our questions, and we hope that this investment helps to bring automatic promotion next season. As fans, though, we must stay vigilant and united, continuing to make clear to any new investors or owners that fundamentally changing the identity of Leeds United is forbidden and non-negotiable. And I think there's some fans that would be willing to trade it all off. I don't mind a bit of red on the shirt if it means the sponsorship, but that's that. That's all you're getting. But yeah, I don't know. Don't sell your soul for the devil and all that sort of jazz. Yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments, though, on the live stream. It's popping off. Big up to you all. Listen, I'll be live tonight as well for the Champions League watch-along. Yeah, that's going to be fun, innit? And we can chat some more then. But thanks always for tuning into the channel. Smash a like on the video. Subscribe to it. Get your comments in. Hit that notification bell. Yeah, and I'll leave it there. We're nearly at 30k, people, man. Get amongst it.